Arrilla Naomi Vaul was born on September 27, 1955, and grew up in Friendswood, Texas, and in 1974, she graduated from high school. 2 years later, in 1976, she married Scott Vaul, and they moved to Bossier Parish, Louisiana, after he was assigned to the Barksdale Air Force Base. On March 15, 1979, just before 6 p.m., 23-year-old Arrilla dropped Scott off at his part-time job at the Kmart in the Eastgate Shopping Center in Shreveport, Louisiana. After dropping him off and getting back in her car, she began the 6-mile drive home. One of her car tires had been slashed, but she didn't know it because it wasn't completely flat yet. However, after crossing the Jimmy Davis Bridge, the tire was flat, causing her to pull onto the shoulder. Witnesses also spotted a man in a white truck pull up behind her, get out, and approach her car. Unfortunately, nobody witnessed what happened next, but what is known for sure is that this was the last time Arrilla was ever seen alive. 4 hours later, at 10:15 p.m., investigators found the car with the slashed tire still on the shoulder with all her belongings inside. However, Arrilla was nowhere to be found. The car was then released back to her mother 24 hours later instead of being held for evidence. Investigators initially believed she took off because of a letter she wrote a few days prior. The letter was to her mother asking if she would remove her from her will, and if anything happened to her, she should take the car instead of Scott. There was also the fact that Arrilla's mother had even disappeared once for 7 years before returning. However, a month later, on April 20th, that theory would be put into question when high school senior 18-year-old Judy Ann Gary, who went by Dodie, went missing in a similar fashion. Just like Arrilla, she was at the Eastgate Shopping Center the day she went missing. The following day, her black and turquoise 1974 Oldsmobile Cutlass was found parked in front of the Kmart with a slashed tire. Witnesses had seen Dodie slowly drive by them with her flat tire in the parking lot around 9:15 p.m. When she stopped, just like Arrilla, a 20 to 30-year-old man in a white pickup truck drove up, got out, and approached her car. Once again, witnesses didn't stick around to see what happened next. 6 weeks later, 2 highway department workers found Dodie's skeletal remains under a bridge in DeSoto Parish, Louisiana. One possible suspect in the case is serial killer James Edward Wood, who was convicted in 1993 for the murder of an 11-year-old Idaho girl. Wood had lived in the Shreveport area between the 1960s and the early 1990s, and even confessed to murdering a local Shreveport woman in 1976. However, he was never charged with that crime. He has since died in prison, but investigators believe he may have committed as many as 185 robberies, 85 sexual assaults, and more than a dozen murders. However, since there is no physical evidence to tie him to Arrilla's disappearance or Dodie's murder, he is not considered a suspect in either case. Sadly, Scott passed away in 2009 at the age of 52 without ever finding out what happened to Arrilla. As of 2024, she has not been found, and this case remains unsolved. Donna Smith Arceneaux was born on November 5, 1976. In 2017, 40-year-old Donna was a single mother of 3 living in Franklinton, Louisiana, where she worked as a hairstylist and ran the Bella Donna Day Spa inside her home. She was described as an outgoing person who loved participating in outdoor activities. She also loved listening to country music, but the number one most important thing in her life was her children. At the time, her sons were grown, and her daughter, Arrilla, who went by Ellie, and Ellie's dog were living with her. Unfortunately, when Ellie went to stay with her father on the weekend of October 20th, 2017, she would never see her mother alive again. That weekend, Donna attended the Washington Parish Free Fair and was said to be in a great mood. However, by the end of the weekend, she would be dead. By Monday, just before midnight on October 23, 2017, friends who had been trying to reach her, including her neighbor and her minister, went by her home to check on her. When she didn't answer the door, they entered the kitchen through an open back door. The minister quickly noticed that a pack of pork chops had been left out and already spoiled. When they entered her bedroom, they shockingly found Donna dead from a gunshot wound to the chest and called 911. She was also half nude and possibly sexually assaulted. When investigators arrived, they discovered blood in the kitchen and her bedroom. The sheriff's office was divided. Some thought she had taken her own life, while others thought she was murdered. This would eventually be cleared up when Washington Parish pathologist Dr. Michael DeFatta ruled her death a homicide, but the chief investigator at the sheriff's office still disagreed. 4 months later, even with fellow investigators disagreeing with him, he would tell the news she took her own life. A year later, Washington Parish coroner Dr. Kaamilya certified the death certificate, and it was sent to Donna's sister Sherry. When she received it, she was shocked to find the manner of death listed as homicide. In the meanwhile, the sheriff's office had the gun found at the scene tested, and the results showed it was not the same weapon that was used to kill Donna. For some reason, they failed to update the media on her cause of death and the fact that the murder weapon was missing. In 2019, her family, still frustrated by the sheriff's office's lack of effort, requested that the state police take over the case. 3 years after the murder, in 2020, the public would finally learn that Donna had not taken her own life and the murder weapon was missing. This was all thanks to Bayou Justice, who released a documentary titled Who Killed Donna Arceneaux? A sexual assault kit was used on Donna and produced results, but those results were not included in Dr. DeFatta's autopsy report. It's now been 4 years since the public learned the truth, but as of 2024, her killer has not been found, and this case remains unsolved. Jerry Dwight Laymon was born in Burns, Kansas on July 4, 1945. In the mid-1950s, in rural Kansas, he met his future wife, Sherry, at the elementary school they attended. During their sophomore year of high school, Jerry, who was a football player, and Sherry, who was a cheerleader, began dating, and they were instantly in love and already planning their future wedding. After high school, Sherry went on to study education and later became a teacher, while Jerry earned a degree in geophysical engineering from Kansas State University. Jerry was known for being incredibly smart and a whiz at math. Sherry even said of him, and I quote, "He was the computer, his mind was a calculator." After graduation, he obtained a job traveling with the Mobil Oil Company. In 1967, Sherry and Jerry finally tied the knot in a small church in their hometown. Afterward, Sherry decided to accompany Jerry while he traveled for work, treating each trip as a vacation. They traveled to Amsterdam and drove all around Europe. Other trips took them to places in Africa, such as the Straits of Gibraltar and the Ivory Coast. They also lived in many different states, including Utah, California, Texas, before finally ending up in Louisiana. After traveling for about 3 years, they decided to settle down and start a family. In preparation, Sherry visited her doctor to get checked out and was given some bad news. Having children would not be easy, and she would need surgery before they even started trying. After the surgery, when Jerry came by to visit, Sherry's medication was causing her memory issues, and she didn't even remember him coming by. On November 16, 1971, 26-year-old Jerry called Sherry, who was still in the hospital, to tell her he would come by after his work class at Tulane University. At 4:15 p.m., Jerry was seen leaving work at the Mobil Plaza Tower office, headed toward his car. After that, he was never seen alive again and never showed up for his class or the hospital where Sherry was. When family and coworkers realized he was missing, they called and notified the authorities, who in turn put out a bulletin for him and his Mustang. Coworkers said his car was parked about 1.5 blocks from the building, and that's likely when he went missing. Investigators believe the motive was robbery. 8 days later, at about 2:30 p.m. on November 24th, Alvin Terrier and his children were driving along a road to go target shooting when they discovered Jerry's body. He had sadly been shot to death with a .22 caliber gun. Found with him was his wallet, which contained his birth certificate and credit cards, but any cash he had on him was missing. Then his Mustang was found in Houston, Texas, after it had been towed from a grocery store parking lot. Investigators believe the car was abandoned right after Jerry's murder. Unfortunately, with little to no leads to go on, the case would eventually go cold. Sherry continued trying to pursue answers, but as time passed, more agencies slowly moved on to other cases. It's now been over 50 years since Jerry was murdered, and as of 2024, this case remains unsolved. Judy Ann Gary was born on October 5, 1966. In 1986, 19-year-old Judy was living in St. Martinville, Louisiana, with her 2-year-old son, Ricky Richard, and her husband of a little over 2 years, Eric Richard. At the time, Judy's mother was sick, and she was spending a lot of time taking care of her at her mother's home on West Hamilton Street. On Saturday, August 2, 1986, Judy left Ricky with her mother and walked to the nearby hospital drugstore to pick up medication for her mother, but sadly never returned. After she went missing, the pharmacist allegedly told officers that he had seen Judy entering a green car after leaving the pharmacy. However, years later, it was discovered that police reports never mentioned her getting into a car. Do y'all think maybe the pharmacist never said that, or it was left out of the report on purpose? Unfortunately, Ricky was placed in foster care, and the reasons Eric didn't raise him are unknown. Interestingly, Judy's sister, Laura Theriot, said that on the day Judy disappeared, she had come by her house to have some coffee. While there, she said she was going to leave Eric. However, I read that Judy loved to dote on her son and was rarely without him. So it doesn't seem likely that she would have vanished on purpose without taking Ricky with her. Considering the walk to the drugstore was only 0.3 miles, it could be that the driver of the green car was someone she knew and thought she trusted. After she disappeared, there were rumored sightings of her in St. Martinville, New Iberia, Broussard, Coteau, and even Youngsville, Louisiana. Some said she looked like she was being held against her will, while others hinted that she was living a new life. However, none of these sightings have ever been confirmed. Toward the end of 2023, the Facebook page Help Find Judy Ann Gary posted that tips came in about Judy's disappearance and have led to 2 persons of interest. Then, on March 16, 2024, a person anonymously posted on the Facebook page with their location set at the St. Martinville Police Department saying, and I quote, "I'm ready to talk. I hope for Ricky's sake that he might finally learn what happened to his mother all those years ago, but sadly, as of today, she has not been found, and this case remains unsolved." Kaamilya Muhammad was born on January 30, 1978, in San Joaquin Valley, California, and grew up in Oakland. Kaamilya loved animals and was known for her beautiful singing voice. She was also able to perfectly mimic the accents of English people, Jamaicans, Hispanics, Germans, and Russians. While in California, she worked as a caretaker for autistic children. At some point, she and her mother moved to New Orleans so her mom could take a job with the city. This was perfect for them because they were wanting to be closer to family. However, after Hurricane Katrina devastated the city in 2005, they moved back to California. Not long after, Kaamilya found herself once again on the east side of the Mississippi River in Atlanta, Georgia. While there, she became pregnant by a man she had been dating, and by 2010, 32-year-old Kaamilya was back in Louisiana with her 2-year-old son. On September 5, 2010, Kaamilya was attending a second-line parade in New Orleans when 3 men began shooting. After the suspects fled, 3 men had been grazed by bullets, and a woman had been shot in the knee, but all 4 survived. However, Kaamilya was not so lucky and was instantly killed after being shot in the head. Police searched the area and found the murder weapon half a block away, a .40 caliber semi-automatic handgun. Investigators would later discover that one of the men had walked up to Kaamilya and shot her twice. From my research, it doesn't appear that Kaamilya was the intended target, so it's really strange why one of the gunmen walked up to her and shot her twice. Sadly, her death took a massive toll on her family, especially her sister, who sank into deep depression. She would remain in her bedroom for over a year, unable to leave, before finally getting help. Sadly, as of 2024, the suspects have never been found, and this case remains unsolved.